okay, I tried. Now you're going to have to go to your timeout room while the rest of us, the majority of this country, run the show.
But that would require him to no longer be the candidate of Wall Street. Has enough Wall Street money gone to the other side that it's not left there for him? I mean, for him to really do that FDR 1936 polarization with the banksters would require him not to be the guy of Larry Summers. Has there been a change?
No, but I'll tell you though, he just gave me an idea. if he would also add in this speech to the American people this week, if he would commit right now, if he were to say, neither I nor the Democrats are going to accept one dime of Wall Street money for the 2012 election. We're making that statement right now. We will not take their dirty money. Their money brought about the collapse of this country, of the middle class. They're the people responsible for the fact that as you're watching this, you can't say with any certainty that the job you're in today will be the job you'll have a year from now. The house that you're in today will be the house that you'll be in a year from now. Nobody has any security. Everybody's frightened. Nobody knows what's going to happen. Well, I'm going to be the one who's going to fight for you, and I'm not going to take their dirty money. Geez, if he said that, you know, it would wake people up. It would get them out of this depression that they're feeling. I don't mean just an economic depression, but I'm saying the depression that comes over you when you are just struggling to get by, and you're not thinking about elections. People today they're thinking about, you know, the second job they had to get to tonight. They're thinking about how, you know, the kid's going to have to come back and go to community college because they can't afford the tuition bill for next semester at the nice university. That's what's on people's minds, and they're mortified by what they think is in front of them. And boy, I mean, if there wouldn't be a better time for for a profile in courage to step forward and be that person. And he could still be the same nice guy. Don't say it like I'd say it. I mean, say it like...
And Michael Moore, your assessment of the new House Speaker, John Boehner.
Yeah.
I think we'll just wind him up and let him loose. Let people, the 55 to 60% who didn't vote today will get a good taste of what he's about. More than likely they will do themselves in because they will overreach in such a profound way. But again, we have to get our message straight. I mean, this is why you admire the Republicans, because they know how to talk. Stimulus? What the hell is a stimulus? It sounds like a gynecological procedure. What is a stimulus? Where did they come up with that word? It's called a tax cut and jobs bill. That's what it's called, because actually that's what it is. That's not an Orwellian term. That's what it actually did and was supposed to do, although it only went halfway, like all the other half measures that, you know, he thought, well, we'll just do some health care or some stimulus or some, you know, whatever. And it didn't work. The last thing I want to say is we have something on our side of the fence that they don't have on the other side, and that's the popular culture. The popular culture motivates people, especially young people, in such a profound way. I mean, you saw that a bit with the Jon Stewart, Stephen Colbert thing this weekend, but it goes much, much more beyond that. When you look at past movements, again, the civil rights movement, the women's movement, the anti-war movement, culture, music, film, books, poetry, TV, all of this, radio, was all part of it. And on our side of the fence, we have so many creative people who do so many good things that needs to be used for the common and greater good. And it hasn't been used. And Obama hasn't tapped that. He's accused of being Mr. Hollywood. But I'm thinking, how come Hollywood isn't making these great spots that should be made to explain this to people, what's really going on? You know, I mean, with all due respect to Republicans, let's face it, they're not very funny. And they don't have a lot of rock and roll bands, and they're pretty far behind on the hip-hop level. You know, they complain, oh, the theaters, all they show are these Michael Moore documentaries and Morgan Spurlock and all these other, you know, they're all lefties. How come there's never any? Well, because they don't make them. They just don't make them. I mean, they occasionally one will be made, and then nobody goes to see it because it's, you know, it's, yeah.
What do you make of war not really being mentioned
At all.
in this
At all.
in this midterm elections? The
Gone.
talk shows on
Right.
Sunday, WikiLeaks, the biggest military intelligence leak in the history of this country. That week, the major agenda-setting talk shows on the networks. There was no discussion.
Yeah.
Of what's happening in Iraq and Afghanistan.
That's right.
And when it's raised with the hosts, they say, because we're talking about the midterm elections,
Right.
but aren't the elections a referendum on the major policy issues, domestic and foreign?
Right. You know what I really want to say to that? I don't want to say it. You know.
Just don't curse because we want to play it on the air.
Yeah. No, it's not about cursing. It's about a profound question. Which is, who are we? I mean, really, who are we as a people, as Americans? You know, we are responsible at this point for so much death and destruction in certain places in this world that will be such a black mark on our soul for so many years to come. And we just want to try and not think about it, forget about it, stay away from it as far as possible. You know, there's a lot of guilt. There's a lot of guilt amongst liberals about the wars because many liberals were for the wars. Most liberals I know were for invading Afghanistan right after 9/11. But when I think back, you know, to the Iraq War, the beginning of that war, and we've talked about this before, where, you know, people I know, the people that were funding my film, the Weinstein brothers, were, you know, for the war. Eventually, they were against it. My agent in Hollywood, the infamous Ari Emanuel, was for the war.
Rahm's brother.
Rahm's brother. Al Franken said things in support of the war. I mean, I could go down a whole list of people who we don't really want to kind of remember that too much, but in fact, that was the truth. And those who spoke out against the war, especially those who were well known, were vilified for that. Even though a month before the war, there's literally millions of people in the streets of America, in towns and villages and cities, for the largest anti-war combined demonstration in our nation's history. And yet, you know, you had, liberals on MSNBC, you had Al Franken, you had other people who, and Nick Kristof in the Times, Raines, the editor, Keller, who had a column then, all making these pro-war statements. And the New York Times itself with Judith Miller helping lead us into the war. So I think there's a lot of liberal guilt about this, and I think that's one of the reasons it isn't discussed. I have one criticism about WikiLeaks, and this is again why we don't do things as well as the right and the conservatives do. They released that incredible 400,000 plus document revelation on a Friday night. They did the document drop that you do when you don't want anybody to notice the documents. I couldn't believe it. I mean, I really was like, what? When are we going to get a clue? Do we have to have like classes in how to do this? It's not that hard. And I say this again with all due respect to WikiLeaks because I have huge admiration for them, and I've been both a financial and a moral supporter of them and Bradley Manning and others who are being persecuted as a result of telling the truth. But we have just really have got to get it together here and quit pussyfooting around, as we say in the Midwest.
Filmmaker and author Michael Moore, Academy Award-winning filmmaker. Grit TV host Laura Flanders co-hosted the election night special with us last night. She'll be joining us after break, as will Rich Kim and John Nichols of The Nation magazine. Stay with us.